In today's ultra-competitive business world, being a successful entrepreneur or business owner can be very challenging. Fortunately, contemporary times have blessed us with resources for tackling those challenges and getting us to success more quickly than we could have imagined. Welcome to The Root of All Success with the real Jason Duncan, a podcast that explores how the world's most powerful entrepreneurs grow incredible companies. This podcast looks at the 5 keys to unlocking success as an entrepreneur. A successful educator turned entrepreneur, Jason's mission is to use his gifts of teaching and leadership to help others get the results they want out of life. Join Jason every week and learn the keys to grow a truly successful business.
Hey there, I'm the real Jason Duncan. Welcome to the show. This is the show, as I said in the intro, where I'm introducing and interviewing some very successful entrepreneurs on how they got to success. This is about how they grow incredible companies and how you can pay attention to their story and learn some things from them. I actually go through this theory of mine on these 5 keys to success. I refer to as P's, and we'll talk about this more in the episode, but the 5 P's of success. And I listen to their story and see if I can dig out these 5 P's, because my theory is that every successful entrepreneur went through these 5 P's. So that's what we talk about on the root of all success. So if you're an entrepreneur, a wantrepreneur, an aspiring entrepreneur, a business owner, and you want to know how to succeed, this is your show. Thank you for being here. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you go subscribe. We're on every podcast player known to mankind due to the fact that we're syndicated on the C-Suite Radio Network. Thankful to those guys for letting us be syndicated on their network. So make sure you go subscribe on Stitcher, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iTunes, wherever it is you listen to podcasts. Make sure you subscribe. Please also leave us a review. If you like what you hear, we love a 5-star review. If you don't like what you hear, send me an email. Let's talk about it. Maybe I can make it better for you. If you want to watch this on video, we actually record this live at the Standard at the Smith House in Nashville, and we put this on my YouTube channel at youtube.com/C/TheRealJasonDuncan. You can go there and you can watch this. I mean, we don't broadcast it live, but we record it live and in person, across the table, mano a mano, and talking to our guests. So if you want to watch it, you kind of see the beauty of the room. This is actually being recorded in the Matador Room at the Standard at the Smith House in Nashville, Tennessee. It's 18,000 square feet of Southern sophistication and style, owned and operated by the one and only Josh Sterling Smith. I'm honored to be a member here at the club, and this is how I've met our guest today, was kind of through this club today, and he has a lot to do with what's going on here and the success of this club and helping them on some of their back-end stuff, which we'll talk about, I'm sure, a little bit. But the Standard at the Smith House is one of the top 5 cigar bars in the country, one of the greatest restaurants you'll ever eat at. Great food, great steaks. Well, the filet is just fantastic. But we're honored to be able to record right here. If you ever come to Nashville, make sure you look me up. You can follow me on LinkedIn or Instagram at The Real Jason Duncan, and maybe we can connect, come over here and hang out, maybe have a cigar or a glass of bourbon or something like that. We can have a good time. Now, I always start my episodes with a sponsor. So the sponsor today is actually me. I want to talk a little bit about what I'm doing, because I've been promoting all these other sponsors, but I thought I would take some time today and talk about what I do. I own a company called Results Through Integrity that provides high-level entrepreneur coaching for people either starting a business or in the early stages of growth. I even take on some clients who have been in business a very long time. As a matter of fact, I'm working with a company right now that's a 26-year-old company, and they're going through a succession plan where the parents are kind of getting ready to step away and the adult children are taking over. I work on this as a consultant and a coach by reverse engineering their goals. I do this reverse step system, and I have this thing called a yo chart, which we go through together, and it's the closest thing I'll ever do to life coaching. I'm not a life coach, but I talk about all these success metrics and how we can work together and reverse engineer those goals. If you're interested in booking a just 20-minute compatibility call with me, you can go to the link below the video if you're watching this on YouTube, or in the show notes, and you can book a 20-minute compatibility call. It's completely free. We'll just talk about what I do, and maybe if it's not where I can do it for you, I have a whole bevy of certified RTI coaches that work with me that I could recommend to you. So go to therealjasonduncan.com. You can read more about my coaching there. And of course, for those of you that want to enroll in the complete startup guide for entrepreneurs, everything you need to know to go from startup to success in 6 months or less, you can go to resultsuniversity.org. You can enroll in that course there. 11 lessons, everything you need to know to get your business off the ground. So I am The Real Jason Duncan and at therealjasonduncan.com. So all of that now aside, let's get into the meat of today's show. So my guest today splits his time between Dallas and Nashville. He is a devout follower of Christ. He's a serial entrepreneur. He started his first business when he was 12 years old. And to date, he is, I think the youngest guest I've had on the podcast, which speaks to his ability and amazing ability as a businessman to build great businesses. But he's got some pretty cool stuff. He's started 4 other businesses since then that have been very profitable and very successful. He's got a design and development agency called 19, which I know we're going to talk a little bit about. And he's also the CEO of the venture-backed power solutions company called Rabbit, which I think is also very cool. And we'll let him tell a little bit about what Rabbit is. But I'm so glad that my guest is here. He flew all the way in from Dallas to Nashville to be on this show. So I want to welcome to the show Mr. Nathan Ruff. Thank you for being here, man. It's an honor to have you here.
I appreciate it. It feels good.
Well, you are, so for the listeners to know, it's like you've got a pretty successful podcast right now called The Rabbit Hole, right? And when you were here in Nashville, I don't know, I guess it's been 6 months ago, I was thinking about starting this episode or this podcast, and I brought you into this room and like, what do you think? How do I set this up? So thank you, because part of what you did got us to where we are today. So how's the Rabbit Hole going? Tell us about the podcast.
It's good. You know, I had a podcast before that I did about 100 episodes, and I hated it. I was just interviewing entrepreneurs, and I realized that most entrepreneurs didn't know why they were successful. And so I just kind of hated the interviews. I hated the softball questions I threw people that they still couldn't answer well. And, you know, it just faced me like there's a lot of people that work really hard for a really long time and they wake up really successful, but they don't necessarily build businesses strategically. And I, of course, had guests on that did build it strategically. And I thought, what do I love? And what I love is Joe Rogan's podcast. These 3-hour long-form conversations that can go anywhere, go really deep. And I thought, that's what I'm going to build. And I'm going to build my own studio, and people are going to come into the studio. We're going to do nothing over Zoom, nothing wireless, and we'll see what happens. So a few months ago, I had a lady on whose father had 13 wives and there were 50 children and also was a murderer. And he was a member of the fundamentalist LDS cult.
Whoa.
And so very interesting 3.5-hour story. Before then, I had a guy on named Greg Pease. Greg Pease is a Marine veteran, 3 tours in Iraq. His mom murdered his brother in front of him when he was 7 years old and his brother was 5. And to this day, he's never been convicted or gone to jail or anything because he was scared for his life. So he lied when authorities came and everything else. And she would do stuff like choke him until he passed out and throw him down the stairs. And so he ran away at age 11. And most people with a crazy background like that end up being a rapist or a terrible human being in society. That's just, you know, they're so scarred from their background, they only know how to hurt people. And he read a book on forgiveness. Like he found one book. He was cheating on his girlfriend. He was alcohol, just all these issues. He saw a book on a shelf about forgiveness, and he learned to forgive his mom. And when he did that, his whole life turned around to where he eventually was a waiter and then GM of a place and then left to do this, left to do that, and now runs a successful real estate company.
Wow.
And so I look for interesting people to go deep in. In a few months, I have a guy coming on that's worked with Elon Musk on the project to go to Mars. And so I just look for interesting people that are down to open up about their life journey or what they're working on at a very deep capacity.
Wow. So the Rabbit Hole is what you need to look up on iTunes and the podcast players. And you're going to hear Nathan Ruff interviewing some pretty amazing people. I've watched some of your podcasts because you do those by video as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we do ours by video, and I think you might have inspired a little bit of that. But I love that idea, and I've watched it and listened to a few of yours on Instagram, and it is interesting. And there's something also interesting about the table that you do your podcast from. So you want to tell? I like the story of the table. I remember you telling me. So what's with the table?
I grew up in a non-wealthy family where our furniture wasn't nice enough to where it needed coasters. And I start with that because this table is nice enough that there is coaster marks, there's glass marks all over it. Essentially, I love this table, this big table. I like that there's space between us. I feel comfortable. And so I was like, all right, if I'm going to build a studio that's going to be a video studio, I need a really cool table. In my my life goal is to run for president 2052 and win. And so I have 3 life goals. That's one of them. And so I had 2052 cut out of the middle and then filled in with a Potsy. And then I had the guy that made Joe Rogan's table make mine. And how that happened was I just DM'd him on Instagram. He's like, I know you're super busy, but I'm just going to ask. And he's like, honestly, I got all this press for building Joe Rogan's table, but like, not a lot of people wrote checks. And he's like, they did, but it's like all for future work. It's like, none of it's right now. So if you're able to do this now, I can make it happen. And so I designed the table myself. It's just a 8-foot by 4-foot table, 2052 cut out of the middle. And then all the cords and cables plug directly into the table. So you just see the mic plug directly into the table, other end of the table, they plug in again. And so it's just made for that studio. And so I call the studio 2052 Studio. So that I'm not trying to tie my brand to it. So if somebody wants to rent it and there's a big 2052, they're like, oh, that's the studio I recorded at.
That's that's why I'm glad you told that, because that was the part of the story that I think is interesting, because the way I was originally introduced to you was the person who introduced me to you said, yeah, he's a young dude, extremely successful. He's killing it. He's got this company called Rabbit that's doing these power solutions for phones in different places, which I know we'll talk about in a minute. But he said at kind of the capstone of the whole intro was like, and he wants to be president in 2052. And I'm like, what? Like that's that's 31 years away. How does that even happen? So why is it that you want to be president? And this is not a political show, and I don't want to go that way. But like, what is it about being president and that year? How did that come to be?
So I look at me being president as a way to give back to a country I love. So I don't look at it as political. I hate career politicians on both sides. I'll never back one. I'll never support one. I met Ted Cruz, and I thought, this is the smartest human I've met. I'm never going to vote for him. I just want people that have lived a normal life. That dude talks like a robot. He's valedictorian of everything he's ever done. And I've done, the same, like I know people that have met Bill Clinton and be like, this is the most personable guy I've ever met. Like, this dude is a brilliant politician. And so I don't like that. Like, I look at it as we have a beautiful country. And I look at it as if somebody like me came from nothing, is able to build billion-dollar companies, which I haven't been able to do yet, but that's where I want to be. I look at if I'm able to do that because of this great free country we live in, then I would lay it all down to be able to give back to my country. And so I think that to build great companies, you have to be a great leader. And I think that our country deeply needs a great leader.
And what is it? Why 2052? What is it about that year?
So I have to self-fund to some extent because I'm not going to do stuff like take $1 billion donation from a pharmaceutical company to pretend like their drugs aren't killing people, or I'm not going to do buyouts. Yeah. And so I had to self-fund a campaign, and a campaign's going to be north of $1 billion. And so I have to have time to be able to build a net worth and companies to be able to fund that. And so I'm looking to have a career and step away from that career to run for president for 4 or 8 years, and then step back into having a career. I don't plan to recently I heard Trump is saying one he's thinking about running again, which is crazy that he has that much energy. That dude has more energy than me. But it's not me. Like if I was out after 4, I'm like back to business, back to building hotels. In his case, so that's how I am. I just look at it as like an act of service, and that's the deep, obviously dying for your country and all these things are act of services that are amazing. You look at me, I don't think I'm going to be a great soldier. So mine is just running for president.
All right. Well, that is appreciable, and I think that listeners can connect with that idea that you want to give back to a country that has blessed you in so many ways. And the entrepreneurial life, I believe, is the best life there is, man. I mean, we can build businesses, we can change the world for the better, we can employ people and change their families. I mean, I had a guest, one of my last guests that I interviewed was talking about how at one point there's over 1,000 employees in the company. Just think about it, that's 1,000 families that's what you and I do as entrepreneurs, and people don't think about it. They just think, you're just some rich dude trying to run around, just drive a Lambo. No, that's not. Listen, if you get rich and you want a Lamborghini, go get one. But the thing is, we're helping tons of people along the way. And I think that your desire to be president in 2052, although I do not share that desire, I think is admirable for the reasons why you want to do it. So congratulations to you on being wise enough in your 20s to think that far into the future.
Yeah, and people say, why not local government? Why not? I think we serve a really big God. Like this idea, I love when people set goals that like anybody could accomplish. Like I want $1 million company. I'm not, you know, $1 million company is something, but you know, I know it's like getting to $1 million isn't as satisfying as you think it will be.
Yes.
Wait, I made $1 million and I'm still broke. What? And so I wanted to set a goal that I considered God size. I considered that I only can achieve this if the God of the universe is on my side.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's such a big goal.
Well, I think that's cool. And so today, though, you started your first company at 12. You've had 4 other profitable companies. Before we get into what you're doing now, what was it at 12? What were you doing?
Plants. I wasn't strong enough to push a lawnmower. You know, so I'm a little over 6 foot right now. When I graduated high school, I was 5'7". Wow. So as a kid, I was like in my 4 foot I was just a little kid for a really long time. And so I wasn't strong enough. A neighbor asked me to water their plants while they're out of town. And I was like, oh. So I go knocking door to door. Hey, $10 a week, I'll water your plants. Everybody's like, that's too expensive. So then I charged $9 a week, and everybody was like, okay, I'm in. And I was like, pricing. People, I don't know what lesson this is, but for some reason, double digits is scary to people. Now, keep in mind, I didn't grow up in a wealthy family. So one of the biggest hindrances on my career was I looked at value as purely money. Because my mom, not my dad, but my mom was very, value is only money. Value is only what is the cheapest. Where like I drive a Mercedes now because it has more value to me than a Hyundai because it's very well made. Like the value is more than just the price tag on it. And so I didn't learn that at that age. But that, yeah, it was like $10 is too high. Okay, what about 9? You know, and so that was the first business.
And now, what are you doing today? What's going on in your life today?
It's interesting because of COVID. I had a business, Rabbit, which is Venture Bat, which I'm sure we'll get into, and it got crushed by COVID.
Oh, really? I did not know that.
Because every bar, you know, we exist at bars, restaurants, hotels, universities, and live events. Those are the only places we exist. So when every bar, restaurant, hotel, and university is shut down, it's not too great for us. So when it shut down, I went back to the agency that I'd built over 8 years, which is a design development agency. So websites, visual branding. And I was like, all right, I'll just work here until the world opens up, there isn't much I can do here. And so I told our investors that, just fully transparent, like there's just isn't, and I would love to be the savior entrepreneur that finds a way, but like our product exists around crowds. So until then, we just need to shelve it. And I was a little late in that conclusion. I kept thinking this was going to last a week or 2 weeks. And I kept thinking that. And then like midsummer, I was like, all right, I should probably go back. But the other sense of that is people were like, it took a global pandemic for people to be like, wow, websites are important. So the other business actually started to do pretty well during the pandemic. And so went back to that. And, we're doing our typical custom websites for anywhere from Fortune 100 companies to entrepreneurs. Like we really serve a huge spectrum of people.
Well, before you do that, I want to interrupt you because I want to talk about the Rabbit thing first, and then I want to talk about the website thing, because you told a story about the website thing that I want to make sure you repeat on the show, because I thought it was a really interesting story, the way you position. I think the first time we met and had lunch, you told this story. But before we go to that, can I ask you a little bit about Rabbit? So Rabbit, to me, is a cool idea, and I guess until you just said that story, it didn't even occur to me that, oh yeah, it would have sucked to be in your business last year. But so you make these, you manufacture these little kiosks that have portable batteries that people can plug into their phone. So tell us a little bit about what that looks like.
Yeah, so everyone knows what a Bird scooter is and how it works. You download the Bird app, you walk up to it, you scan the QR code, it unlocks it, and you pay like 10 cents a mile as you drive your Bird scooter or something like that. So our concept was, what if we take that and we apply it to charging? Everywhere I'm at, people's phones are always dying. And so you look at like, baby boomers check their phones every 8 minutes. Millennials check their phones every 4 minutes. Gen Z checks their phone every minute. So the one thing that's increasing is phone usage drastically. But if you look at phone battery, it's not increasing a lot. It kind of like the Apple released the phone with like the biggest battery in it, like the iPhone Pro Max, whatever, 12, 18, and had the biggest battery in the market. And we saw that 20% of our users were using this phone.
Wow. And
because what it is the battery lasted so long they didn't plug it in at night. And then they found themselves 3 days later with a dead phone, and we were the solution. So What ours is a small kiosk. It's 9 by 12 inches. And you walk up to it with the Rabbit app. You scan the QR code. You pay $1 an hour. And out pops a fully charged power brick with the cords built in for every phone in the market. Micro USB, USB-C, and iPhone. And you can rent and return anywhere, like anywhere in the world. So you could rent one and return anywhere. And to return it, you just put it in an empty slot. You don't scan anything. You don't do anything. When you put in the empty slot, it's going to recharge it and also note that you returned it. And so I had this idea, and every person I would talk to about it would be like, this is brilliant. So I decided I'm going to leave my company and start this. And I put together a list of like 11 wealthy people I know. And I call every one of them. And over the phone, 10 of the 11 commit $100K at a $3 million valuation just for the idea.
Wow.
So I raised the round in 7 days. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is real. I don't take that full million because I'm like, I don't need the full million. Why take it? Always take entrepreneur advice. If somebody's offering you money,
take it.
Especially when it's a startup idea of something that doesn't really exist in the marketplace. We're the only company in the US. All these have to run on cell towers. They run on SIM cards. Like so like the one that's in the standard here, like that's running on a 4G network. And so we have to develop where the 4G network's talks to the device, and then talks to the app. And there's some technical know-how that goes into this. And so I realized there's a couple companies that were trying to do this, but they either were really bad at the technical side or really bad at the branding side. And so I knew I had the branding side down. It's what I'd done. I named the company Rabbit, and the power bricks are called carrots. So like I have that
and
side
orange.
down.
They look like carrots. They're orange.
So
yeah.
you're either feeding a rabbit or taking a carrot away from one. And so it was the tech side, and my friend that I'd worked with his company before, Sky Mayhew, he was the first employee of a company that raised something like $80 million and had 200 employees. He was the CTO of them, and he'd been offered like high-level CTO jobs, and he was moving from Vegas. I convinced him to move to Nashville. I'd started Rabbit, but he wasn't my CTO at the time. And so I was like, hey, I'll help you move here. We'll do the drive. So our 20-hour drive from Vegas to here, which I think ended up being 36 hours due to some mishaps, I spent the whole time talking about Rabbit to eventually he was like, fine, I'll join. And so he joined, and we went from idea to live in 115 days. Wow. And as you know, as an entrepreneur, when you build something, you put your heart and soul into it. It's launch day, and then you realize that nobody cares. Very rarely. I've never started a business that just magically worked. So we launched this black box with little orange things on it and a plastic sign on top, and it's instantly successful. Within our first 2 weeks of being live, we're live at like 20 places. We're getting like 75 new users a week, just organically. We've never spent $1 in advertising or marketing. So we launch Atlanta 2 weeks later. We launch Miami at the end of December, and we're starting to run out of money, but we're hitting scale. We're doing something like 500 new users a week organically. We get Georgia Tech to commit to put us at their football stadium, and their rev split, because businesses get the unit for free and then they get 20% rev split. They're going to put into a scholarship fund. Awesome. And then they're promoting us on their Jumbotron for free because they say this is public safety. So then we go to like every university and we're like, hey, is your student safer with a dead phone or a charged phone? Give me the answer.
Yeah, that's
and
good.
so we start to scale everywhere. And, again, we're running out of money. And so from December to December to February, I'm raising a round of funding. And I'm able to raise $1 million at a $10 million valuation for a company that has like 15,000 in revenue. Now, with that being said, we have commitments at South by Southwest with some pretty big alcohol companies. They're going to wrap all our units with their brand and give everyone there free charging. Like, for a 6-month-old company, we're on fire, and everybody knows it. Like, I'm feeling on top of the world. And I started dating my girlfriend a month after I started that. She's now my wife, but started a month after I started the company. So, like, I'm on top of the world. I'm dating, like, the most amazing woman. My company's just crushing it. And then our round of funding set to close something like March 17th or something.
Oh, my gosh.
And the mayor calls for all bars in Nashville to be legally shut down on a Saturday, and it has to be like Sunday at midnight on like March 5th or something around there. And that following Tuesday, I get an email from the group, and they said, we're going to pause all investments until we get a pulse on what's happening.
Ugh.
So then I go into my company, brilliant entrepreneur I am, and go, guys, Trump is president. He's not going to kill our economy over a virus. That dude loves our economy more than he loves people. We're fine. 2 weeks, they're gonna, we're gonna get the thing. We'll be back to scaling. Everything's good. So I was wrong.
Yes.
And that was, so Rabbit just kind of had the whole world. And then, again, all these live events, South by Southwest, NRA annual convention. Josh Smith of The Standard helped me get that one. Shout out to him.
Yeah.
And so we were feeling on top of the world. We were stressed for money, but again, I'd raised the money. I finally got it committed. It was a really high valuation. I get it, but the market was hot. I thought I could do it. And so that all hit kind of zero. And I was like, all right, I don't know what to do. And so after a couple months, I went back to the agency. But yeah, that's Rabbit's story standalone.
So Rabbit's coming back though. It's not dead, right? You're going to be able to launch this thing as soon as the world gets back.
So it's us. We now have some competitors that have sparked up during this time. I'm not really worried. Competition is good. It actually educates the marketplace. So, before we were the whole market. So now we're not, but we're still, I think we have the best tech and everything. And it's just kind of finding when there can be, and there's some live events that are working on. So it's about us raising a round of funding to be able to hire the staff to get into all those events and, start building relationships again. Everybody got fired. Our connections at every single big events company got laid off. And some got rehired, but some found new careers. Most got their real estate license.
Oh my gosh. I was in a meeting Monday morning and in a mastermind group, and one of the guys was presenting, and he's a real estate guy and a contractor. And he was going over data, and he said, do you know how many real estate agents or realtors are in Nashville? And I said, nah, a bunch. He goes, 14,000. He said, there are more realtors than listings. This is insane. Okay, sorry, a little tangent there.
Well, it's just a joke that when people lose their job, they're like, I'll go to real estate. It seems to be a common thing that people decide to do after they've had a long career.
But you had, so you were with 19, your development agency, and then the Rabbit idea became, hey, this is the thing I'm going to double down on. So you stepped away.
I stepped away when I raised the funding. So when it was just the idea.
So you stepped away from 19. It's still going, still there. And we're going to circle back to that concept in a minute. But you stepped away from 19, headlong into Rabbit, and it was going great until coronavirus, until COVID hit. And so that story is on pause. It's still coming because it's a great story. It's a great concept. I love the little carrots, as you call them, because they are orange and they are cool, and they have the cord built in. You don't need a cord. You just need your phone. You plug it in. Fantastic idea. So now that kind of is on pause, you went back to 19 and kind of doubled down on that. Is that right?
Kind of. So we got new leads that came in. So I hired more people. I went out and got some bigger dev projects so we could have some more revenue. I'd kind of turned down a lot of harder work and just did simple builds. I knew my team could handle that. Mm-hmm. I could have done a better job maybe preparing my team for bigger stuff. But I went back, kind of got some bigger contracts, got our feet wet again. And I said, now that I've built Rabbit, and of course, this guy is everything to credit for that, but I think I want to build more complex things. And so I was listening. I love podcasts, and I heard every time we listen to podcasts, they're sponsoring something with their affiliate link. So it's athleticgreens.com/Rogan for your first month free, or whatever the case is. And I thought, what if we apply that to a micro market? So I went to a guy named Tyler Thompson, who owns 3 title boxing clubs in Nashville, and one of them is the number one in the nation, has been the number one in the nation for years. I said, I want to create a software that creates a dedicated landing page for every member of your gym with a special offer on it, 2 free classes or free wraps or whatever the case is. His is 2 free classes. And they can share that link with their friends. And then if their friends end up becoming a member, they get a discount off their membership or cash or, whatever you decide. But our platform will track it all. So, we'll track where the leads came from, then if the leads became members. And he's like, all right, I'm down to try it out. So I built that, we launched it, and we just had our first 6-month case study, kind of looking back. I mean, it's been longer than 6 months, but looking back at it, we brought $19,000 a month in new recurring revenue and 165 new members directly through our software.
Wow, that's amazing, dude.
So I built that, and then I've been slowly scaling that, 1 to 2 gyms a week. And, people are like, I always tell people, look, I'm not trying to sell you anything. I have real case studies from gyms, it's $400 a month. And so I'm like, the average gym's about $100 a month. I'm like, look, it's 4 members and it pays for itself. Yeah. And I'll even have you can have it for free until you hit 4 members. So it costs you nothing. And so I've been doing that, built that, and that was cool. It feels nice to build something with an idea, because the key word that I've built 4 profitable businesses. I've started about 50. like 40 sits never made $1 or at least cost way more than, so like it's a rhythm. So it's like I built that. And so the software company or the design company. So we're still doing a lot of design and development and websites. And that is our specialty, is custom websites made from scratch. We believe every brand's unique. Therefore, every website needs to be unique for that brand. And we have a level of standards that we believe is unmatched. Everything's Retina. Everything's high quality. We bring in photographers, videographers. Like, we make sure the website is perfect, and we're really sticklers about that.
Now, you told a story about, and this is the story I was trying to get to, is that you told a story about how people will go spend, millions of dollars
Yeah.
sponsoring the Predators or something.
Yeah,
but they
yeah,
spend $5,000. Tell that story.
So the reason I hated running 1.9 and I wanted to get out and build Rabbit, like the reason I couldn't wait to jump ship, was you'd meet with a company that's $50 million in revenue. And this is a real, I won't release the company name, it's a real company, $50 million in revenue.
50.
Yeah.
50.
50 million in revenue. They're number 2 at what they do in the world. And I said, what did you spend on your website? Like, we spent about $5,000 4 years ago. I said, do you think it could perform better? Do you think it could get you more leads? Do you think it could be better? Like, have you ever brought in a true web expert? People pay me $1,000 an hour just to review websites. Like, that's how good we are at knowing what works. And he's like, I'm sure it could be. But, what's it worth? Maybe $10,000 inflation? What's a new website worth? $10,000? I'm like, well, what did you spend to sponsor the Preds? $250. I love the Preds, though. Yeah, but how many leads did it drive? Like, what is the success rate of that? What's the ROI of that? And he's like, well, it's hard to track the ROI because it's more people knowing our brand, and they might pick up the phone or whatever. I was like, well, with a website, I can track the success. Like, we know the total amount of leads you've gotten from your current. If we launch a new one, we can see, is there an improvement? We know how long people stay on your website. We can see, do they stay there longer? We know what pages they view, what people are Googling. We can build pages to interact with what people are People are Googling coupon codes. We can hide a coupon code on your website. So every time they find a coupon code, we've done stuff where we made a website rank for their competitors. People would Google their competitor's coupon code and make it where it'd pull up like the competitor's website. And we'd be like, hey, here's the coupon code. So we wrote all this fake text around for the competitor, but you really want to use us. So when people were looking for their competitor, they got redirected back to them. Like, we're clever with how we do things. The referral software, create a dedicated page with a special offer for every member.
I love that.
We just like to think outside the box. Like, we want people to grow. We look at this as an investment. I tell you what, for every $10,000 you pay us, we want to give $100,000 back. So if you're paying us $30,000 for a website, you should expect a $300,000 return. Yeah. We expect that what we do is really great and there's a tangible return on it.
Yeah, I love the unique URL. As a matter of fact, I recommended one of my coaching clients to you who owns a gym, and I think that's on the agenda for us to talk about in our next session. but I love that idea. So let me kind of, I'm going to dig in if you don't mind. So I've got this theory, these 5 P's of success, and I've already heard several, and organically in your story. But my theory is that on like every successful entrepreneur, whether they're running a $1 million company or they're running a $1 billion company, went through these same 5 things. And the first thing is passion. I find it is in every single person's story, and is that without passion, you can't be successful. Now, but there are 2 sides to passion. There is the emotional side of passion, which is, I love what I'm doing. It's great. It gives me all the warm and fuzzies. But the passion I'm talking about, while that's good and will help, the passion that's a key to success, the people that I talk to, is that passion means willing to endure. It's like the passion of the Christ was not about him being warm and fuzzy going to the cross. It was about Jesus being willing to endure for a greater good. And so I believe that passion is the first and foremost key to success in any entrepreneur's life. You've been very successful. Even in your 20s, you've been extremely successful. How do you see passion playing a part of your story?
I love to help people, and I don't want to disappoint people. So I like nice things. So, I think that, like, I'm passionate. I'm not necessarily, like, I guess at times I'm passionate about websites, or I'm passionate about putting battery packs everywhere, but it's always an end goal. It's always like there's something bigger. Like, I get excited that I get to pay people 6 figures a year. Like, I'm that dude. Like, people are like, oh, they make six figures working for me. They were able to buy a nice house, a nice car. That's the fulfillment. That's like, I get passion for what I'm doing for others.
Yeah. So but you said you started, you used the number 46. You've been facetious there, but 4 profitable companies and 46 non-profitable companies. That's passion, man. You're willing to endure all that crap just to find one that works. That is how you become successful. Like, right? I mean,
yeah, not being super smart has helped me a lot in life. The reason PhD professors never grow successful companies is they talk themselves out of it. I know this because I've taught a lot of entrepreneurship classes across universities across the world, even taught one in Finland. And I've realized these PhD professors know everything up here, and because of that, they talk themselves out of everything. Where me, I was just dumb enough to be like, oh, there's like, let's say there's like a rushing river right here, and there's like, an apple on the other side. I'm like, oh man, apple looks good. Oh no. And so then I'm like in too deep, and I got to find my way out. So I've just always, I just am dedicated. I'm passionate. But yeah, I find that end goal, and I don't see a lot of in between. Gary Vee would refer to it, I think, as like clouds and dirt, like here and here. And so I just kind of make it happen.
Yeah. Well, so we've got 2 name drops. We got Joe Rogan and Gary Vee has been mentioned. If anybody knows either of those people, let's get them on the show, or I'll be on their show. It'd be great. So the second P, Nathan, is being in the right place at the right time. And I believe that where you are in the world has a lot to do with where you'll be able to go in the world. You grew up not in Nashville, right? You didn't grow up. Oh, you did grow up in Nashville. So you grew up so you grew up here, but you have a unique story in that you moved to Dallas for a very specific reason. Like, you didn't just, it wasn't, hey, I've got a friend who lives there or something. Like, I love that story because I think it illustrates the fact that your journey to success is because you're willing to put yourself in the right place. So tell the listeners about maybe why you moved to Dallas, or how place has played a part in your success.
So people has played a huge part. I know that's one of your P's.
Yeah, that's the third one. So go ahead and feel free to talk about that too.
And so everything good in my life has come from relationships. Everything. We know each other because of somebody else.
Yeah.
Josh is my client because of Jason, who's one of your, it's like everything is just, so it's relationships has been everything. And I realized that everything good in my life had come from relationships. Every client, every deal, every hookup, everything that like positive that has come from relationships. And so I thought, if I want more of that, I have to go get it. Like, not everyone in the world is going to move here. So I thought, what's a place that semi-believes what I believe? There's a bunch of people, a bunch of businesses, a bunch of money. And I was like, Dallas. And so I moved there to build relationships. The first thing we did, within a week of being there, I'm touring country clubs. I don't drink. I don't like activities like that. I'm trying to build relationships. I'm like, man, the people I want to be friends with, which are 55-year-old CEOs of companies, they're probably going to be here. So I'll be here too. So I just look at places seeing a place, like if they're at the country club, I'll be at that country club too. If they're at the Standard in Nashville, I don't smoke, I don't drink, but I know where successful people hang out.
Yeah. I think so many entrepreneurs start out and they just spend all their time working in their business, and they stay in their office or stay in their bedroom or stay in their, the bonus room in their house or the basement, wherever it is they're working, and they stay there and they work and they grind, and they think that hustle, because they watch Gary Vee talk about, man, just hustle and grind. No. Not that Gary Vee's wrong, but I think that people are misunderstanding. He's like, listen, hustle and grind is important, but if you don't rub elbows with the right people and you're not in the right place, dude, you're fighting a losing battle here, man. You got to go. And I admire, again, your tenacity and courage to pick up from one of the greatest cities in the world right now, Nashville, COVID notwithstanding, even though our mayor's done some weird stuff for us, but like, not that notwithstanding, I think that your courage to go over there illustrates that your journey to success, man. You're still young. That is going to pay so many dividends. You just moving to Dallas.
Yeah, and we're looking at doing it every 3-4 years. So we're thinking Puerto Rico might be next. I've made it very clear I'm going to have a plane by the time I'm 35, and I plan to homeschool my kids and fly around. But I know that relationships is the answer. See, when you're talking about the entrepreneur in his basement just struggling or hustling, well, for me it was me struggling because I was really good at everything I did, but I didn't know anyone. My parents knew nobody. I had no relationships. I didn't know anybody. And so I was like, how do I get more business? And so I thought, I'm going to be the foremost expert in business development. I mean, we do crazy. Our cold email marketing campaigns, like step 3, adds them on LinkedIn, references the past 2 emails. Step 4, sends a handwritten letter. I built an API that triggers a handwritten letter customized to people. I mean, like, I've gone crazy to become like really good at business development. And then I would meet people that I couldn't stand, that weren't good humans, and their businesses sucked, and they were very successful. And then I realized they knew everybody. And I was like, oh, like maybe product and service is a piece of it, and who you are is a piece of it. But who you know is everything.
That is correct. I'm so glad to hear you say that. And I think the listeners would appreciate that too, coming again from one of my younger guests who've achieved success, to know that this early in the game. I mean, I look back, I didn't even start my company until, how old was I when I started my company? 34, 35. Like I was an accidental entrepreneur in my 30s, and here you are, you started a business at 12, but like real businesses in your teens. And now you're growing them and are succeeding. So the fourth P is preparation. So we got passion, we got being in the right place at the right time, knowing the right people, which you've illustrated fantastically. But preparation is the fourth one. And I find that all successful entrepreneurs have a certain know-how that without which they would not have been successful. And I think about people that are big in the news today, the Elon Musks of the world, the Jeff Bezos of the world, even Bill Gates, even though he started much longer ago than they did. But they had a certain know-how to make this happen. They didn't start out as geniuses. They didn't start out as knowing everything, but they had a know-how. They had a way to do it. I look back at me when I started my first company, big successful company, was a lighting company. I didn't know anything about lighting, but I knew how to sell. So my preparation was, hey, I know how to sell. This is probably going to sell, and it did. And I, made millions of dollars as a result of that. So for you, what prepared you to be successful with Rabbit and with 1-9?
I think life is a big part of that, like just living. Because my life really started at 18. I was homeschooled. I was very sheltered. I didn't know anybody. We didn't go to a church. So my life really started at 18. And so I made a bunch of mistakes all the time. And I just tried to learn from those. And what really changed my life is that I was 20 years old, 21, and I realized I was a complete idiot. Like, I didn't read. I didn't know anything. I didn't know what people were talking about. I didn't know marketing terms. And so I said, I'm just going to accept the truth about myself, that Nathan Ruff is dumb, which I hope somebody doesn't clip out this little portion.
Clip that one.
Yeah.
Putting that as a social chart.
And so Nathan Ruff is dumb. I'm just going to accept the truth about myself, and then I'm going to go and change it. And so I started to read 100 books a year, and it's 2 books a week. Like, that's pretty intense, like change. I'm also the guy that ran a marathon with no training. Like, I just love to throw myself into things. So I always started with accepting truth. Where is truth? I want to accept it, and then I want to run towards being the better person of it. And so I accepted I was dumb, and then went to become smart. And so my preparation has just been like doing reps. I would say that's been my preparation. Is that I did a deal and I did a great job, but the guy ended up hating me at the end of it. And I was like, what did I do wrong? And it's like, oh, I miscommunicated one point, or I was misunderstood in how I just put in reps. I remember I used to like I spoke at Belmont one time, and I was like, if you're in this class, you don't have a chance at becoming a successful entrepreneur. And my mic got cut, and I got kicked out. And I was like, okay, not a good opener. So like my preparation has just been like doing the work, man.
I think there is so much wisdom in that. And I know that I set out to write a book a long time ago with the title called Pay Attention, and I never finished it. And I think maybe there's something in there. But I think the fact that you are aware of that self-awareness, I think paying attention and knowing and learning from your mistakes. I teach my clients all the time, failure is a much better teacher than success. Like, if you succeed every day, you're going to suck when you get, plan is my 5th P, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But Mike Tyson is the one who said everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face, right? And if you're not aware, okay, I got punched because I left myself open, or I made the wrong opener at Belmont University and I shouldn't have said that in that class, or I said this one thing to that dude and made him not like me and he didn't do business with me. Paying attention, the wisdom in what you just said, Nathan, is amazing. And I hope the listeners will pay attention to that, because that, in fact, is one of the keys to preparation. The final piece, plan. And a lot of times when I talk about this idea of plan, people think It's a business plan. And most successful entrepreneurs that I interview, whether they're billionaires or single digit millionaires as they call them, no matter what it is, I think 80-90% of them don't have written business plans. So I don't think the written business plan is what I mean, although it can be important. It's not an indicator of success. What I mean by plan is the ability or the strategy to obtain and deploy financial resources. So Rabbit, let's talk about Rabbit. So you just told that story. Like you had this fantastic idea. And you know what? I tell people all the time, ideas are worthless. Without action, they don't matter. You can go to a homeless dude on First Avenue and he's probably got some amazing ideas. But without a plan to put them in place, it doesn't matter. So your plan for Rabbit was to call your people, your network. Goes back to number 3, P number 3. So talk a little more about that plan and give some encouragement to the listeners who are trying to figure out how do they get resources to launch their thing.
I wish I knew what it was like to raise fundraising for a tough company. I picked up the phone and people heard the idea and they were like, damn it, my phone dies all the time. This is brilliant. This is the answer. You got it. Right? Like I had a product that's easy. And I know a guy who sells AI, artificial intelligence. Nobody understands what he's talking about. Like that's his hardest problem in selling it. Like people understood like, oh, my phone died. This solution, like it was so easy that anybody could get it. So that was like step 1, is that like people just fully comprehended like what I was doing. Step 2 is I had a track record. I built other things. I have a good reputation. People trust me. So they thought, okay, if I put my money in here, still high risk, still a good chance it fails. Most startups do, but this is the guy I want to bet on. So sometimes it makes me cry to think about it. Like legitimately, I sit and I cry. I look at myself and just cry in the mirror that like, wow, somebody trusts me enough to write a $100,000 check to me. And I, sometimes I feel bad because it's like Rabbit's not going as planned right now. And it's like, ooh, but I always set end goals and then fill in the blanks. And so our end goal is we want to be in 21 countries and 125 cities. That is what we want. So we want to be in 79 cities in the U.S. and then 40-something cities internationally. And so the first step is populate the U.S., go to the hottest cities. And so Nashville, we live here and we have Broadway. So it's like, this makes sense. Atlanta we found a good contractor that was able to place units and it's a big city. So I was like, well, we'll try it. And then Miami is like party city, tons of people, great. And then we launched Jacksonville because one of our investors lives there. He made an intro to a guy who owns 10 bars there. I'm like, all right, here's 10 units. And so I look at everything as the end goal and then who do I hire to get there? Yeah. So I'm never saying like, all right, who do I need to call? Who do I need to email? I'm saying, who can I hire that can handle this? Because I know that my job is continue on towards that end goal. And so like the first move I'm saying is like, who's my next hire? Like as a CEO, especially at Rabbit, at One Night's a little different, but at Rabbit, I'm thinking, who is my next hire? And so for us, we scaled over 100 contractors in our first 6 months. Because I was like, I want contracts everywhere. I want that the second units come in, they're already placed for, we deploy them, our network grows and grows and grows. And so everything to us was about growth. Mm-hmm. So I told people mistakes are okay. If the app breaks, that's okay. If we overcharge people, that's okay because we'll make it right. We'll refund them. Our motto is we don't suck. Like I tell everyone, like if there's ever a problem, we don't suck. Like somebody doesn't want the unit, we'll come pick it up. Somebody's unhappy, we'll give them a refund. We don't suck. We're focused on growth. We don't care about revenue, money. That all comes with us hitting growth. And so our whole team knew that Nathan and Rabbit care about growth. And so every decision was about how do we grow. And that was partnerships with payment processing companies at 200,000 merchants. That was partnerships with Little League MLB. That was partnerships with South by Southwest or Georgia Tech. It was just like, we want to grow. And whatever deal we need to make to grow, we'll do it. But to us, it's about growth. And so our plan was just grow. And then I hired the right people to fill in all the space in between where we are now and scaling it.
So I got a serious question to ask you. So this is called the root of all success. So we're talking about success, obviously. So in your definition, your own words, what does success mean to Nathan Ruff?
25,000 people die a day because of dirty water. So success is solving that problem.
So you've got a heart for bringing clean drinking water to the world.
All I care about.
And you talk about that with that's part of your presidential aspirations. You want to make that part of your deal.
For sure. But yeah, that's the end goal for me. 25,000 people die a day because of dirty water. And I'm like, other things where it's like, like I know somebody who died of COVID who also had stage 4 cancer, but they died of COVID. Like these people are just, they walked up in their village, they took a bath in dirty water, they drank the dirty water, they got some type of disease, they died. And most of these diseases, like mosquitoes, all that, where do they produce? Dirty water. So that is what I want. Like to me, everything is about my mark on earth. Like I'm here for this little, there's this Francis Chan that's like, here's your time on earth and then here's eternity.
Yeah.
And so like I get real worried about the things I do here because I want to make sure it matters and leaves a purpose and it's for the glory of God. And that is where God has currently strung my heart. And if he changes it, I'm open to it. Like if God calls me a missionary tomorrow, like he's going to I'll eventually sell everything and that's what I'll be doing. Because if God wants something, like it eventually happens, whether I go kicking and screaming or like I accept it. But right now I've been called to build great companies with great people and bless the world. But my mission, the end goal is this water goal.
Wow. And so is there a way that listeners can help kind of join in that? If somebody else is out there like, amen, brother, I'm in for the water thing. Is there a way to help with that? I mean, what are you
Charity
doing?
Water is the best organization, I think, in existence.
Charity Water?
Yeah, so Charity Water takes every dollar you donate, and it goes directly to the cause. They privately raise money from the richest people in the world, from Elon Musk to Gary Vaynerchuk, something called The Well, where the people commit from like $60,000 to $250,000 a year to pay for their staff. So when you donate to them, let's say you pay with a credit card, they even reimburse the credit card fee. So every dollar you donate goes directly to building wells and providing fresh water. And then all the money for their staff and marketing and resources, that's all privately raised from investors. When you look at the Non-American Red Cross, the Cancer Society,
Mm-hmm.
in 2018, I believe, they spent $300 million on events. And they raised $350 million from the $300 million they spent on those events. And of that, 50 million left over, that mainly went to like staff and like marketing. But like if you go of their $1 billion they raise a year, I think maybe like less than 10% goes to actual cancer research. And that us millennials and especially Gen Z doesn't like that. And so Charity Water solves that. They say, hey, like ours goes directly to the cause, and then we just privately raise money for our staff.
Mm. I love your heart in that, Nathan, and I think the listeners are going to connect with that. And I think that if you want to find out more about how to connect with Nathan, he's got something he wants to tell you about. So Nathan, people can go to your website, Nathan Ruff, and that's RUFF, NathanRuff.com, to find out how to contact you and get in touch with you. But you're also on all socials. How would you like people to connect with you on socials?
Yeah, so it's just the Nathan Ruff on everything. THE Nathan Ruff, RUFF on everything. I really only use Instagram. LinkedIn, there's such great outreach on LinkedIn, so I need to get better at it. And then Facebook, I only accept people I'm friends with, so I have something like 4,000 requests that are unanswered. So you probably won't ever get accepted on that unless we're friends, because that's actually people don't know my wife's name, and I keep it that way.
Yeah.
So I keep my very, there's a public persona, and then I keep a private life that I keep very private.
And you've got an offer you want to offer to the listeners today about from 1-9. So would you tell people a little bit about that?
Yeah. So a lot of people face this problem where they have a website that they like, but their web designer disappeared. He's slow to respond, or he went out of business, because most people that hire are agencies that got too much one-time cash and not enough reoccurring, so they couldn't make the bills. Or they're freelancers, they're like, I don't want to do this anymore, or they're too busy because they're freelancers, they need staff. And so we found this sweet spot of taking people's existing websites and managing them. And that includes backing it up, that includes fixing all bugs, adding new pages, improving the look, changing fonts, just making it better. And so we offer an end-to-end website management service. So think about how people hire IT companies. IT companies cover everything but your website. So we like to say we cover only your website. And so it's typically $300 a month, and now it's $250 a month thanks to your discount code.
Yeah, so they can get essentially 2 months free on a year's worth of end-to-end website management. They go to managemywebsites.com/root, as in root of all success. That's managemywebsites, plural, .com/root. and you can get $600 off a year on end-to-end website management. Nathan's talking about it's $250 a month, normally $300. So essentially, you're getting a couple of months free. So that's fantastic.
Unlimited updates. You get your own project manager. We're there to handle your website. You never have to worry about it again.
And I can tell you from experience, for the listeners, I can tell you from experience, Nathan doesn't suck. Like what he commits to with Rabbit and with 19 is really legitimate, and I would highly recommend. Nathan, if some entrepreneur is out there listening right now and they're like, hey man, I'm in my 20s, I'm young, I haven't started 4 companies by the time I'm 20 like you did or whatever, but what would you advise them? What is your 1 or 2 pieces of takeaway from this conversation that they need to do this in order to be successful?
So I don't believe you need to be good at anything other than building relationships. So your goal should be to meet everybody and then connect everyone. So I have a friend who's a car mechanic. We were having dinner last night. And he knows more CEOs than I do because he works at Porsche, and he's very personable. And he's like, dude, I know all these high-level people, but when I host a poker night, nobody shows up. You host a poker night, 50 people show up. I don't get it. I said, you need to connect them to each other. So you know them all individually, but you need to, when you meet this CEO, be like, oh, your personality would really go well with this guy, and then connect them. Yeah. When you do that is where the power is, because then they're both like, how do we know each other? Oh, through Nathan. And so your goal as an entrepreneur should be to build relationships, because relationships is where funding comes from. It's where clients come from. It's where ideas come from. It's where opportunities come from. Relationships is your well of wealth.
I love it. So Nathan, thank you for being on the show today. It is an honor, and I look forward to connecting with you later and talking more about the rabbit hole. So the other thing, too, is how do they get in touch with you for the rabbit hole? They just search the rabbit hole?
Yeah, just search the rabbit hole, and then a direct link is 2052studio.com, and that's where you can rent my studio. I built a full video studio in Dallas, Texas. So you can rent that studio, but there's also a link to our show there.
Great. Well, thank you for being on here. Well, there you have it, everybody. I mean, every time I interview one of these super successful entrepreneurs like Nathan, I'm blown away on not only at their story and how they connect to it, but the fact that these 5 things really do appear in everybody's story. The passion of being in the right place at the right time, knowing the right people, the preparation, the know-how, the plan to get those resources just like Nathan did. And I love how committed he is to the idea of connectivity, of connecting people, of knowing people, because that in fact is one of the main keys to success, is knowing the right people and connecting those people to one another. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. Please make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Please leave us a review if you haven't done so yet. If you like it, if you don't like it, email me. Let's talk about it. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. So for those of you that are watching this on YouTube, thank you for tuning in. It's youtube.com/C/TheRealJasonDuncan. But I want to do this as we sign off today. Some of you out there are wondering, you've got this idea that's just burning a hole in your brain. You lie awake at night thinking about it, and you know that you've got this great idea to build $1 million company, but you don't know what to do. You don't know what that first step is, or the second step, or the third step, because the education system didn't teach you how to do that. You don't know how to start a business, let alone run a successful business. And you listen to podcasts like this because you want to get some sort of little insight. Well, would you like to know what your probability of success is with that idea? Well, you can figure that out. You can go to therealjasonduncan.com/success, and you can take a free 5 P's of success assessment. It's completely free. It's only 17 questions. It goes through and asks you specifics about your passion and the place that you're in and the people that you know and the preparation and the plan. Just like we talked about with Nathan here on the show today, you can go and take that assessment, and at the end, you'll get a personalized report sent to your email, sent to your inbox, that tells you exactly what your probability of success is. And, some of those reports come back and they say, your passion's low, you don't really know the people in this industry, maybe pick something else. Or it'll come back and say, hey, your passion's really high, but you don't know the right people. You need to take Nathan's advice. You need to go out and start connecting with people. Delay the start until you get a few more connections, and then go. So it's just a little leg up in the whole system. And then beyond that, there's the complete startup guide for entrepreneurs. Everything you need to know to go from startup to success in 6 months or less, that you get a special discount on if you go through the success assessment. So thank you for tuning in to The Root of All Success. I'm the real Jason Duncan. Until next time, when I talk with another super successful entrepreneur like Nathan, remember this: Jesus is King.
Thank you for listening to another edition of The Root of All Success with the real Jason Duncan. If you've enjoyed this week's episode, we invite you to visit therootofallsuccess.com to access the show notes and other helpful resources. Take charge of your business. Grow it from great to incredible. Join us again next time here on The Root of All Success.